there is Lana. Hi, Lana.
So sorry to
What are you
rudely
sorry about?
interrupt.
I'm just opening the show and I'm rambling until you get on is basically
Okay,
what's happening. Yeah.
not that late.
So
2
my
minutes.
rambling is over. You want to
I'm
guess
here.
what you want to guess what I opened up with?
What?
Supreme Court.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's
Yeah,
different.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going over basically the history of how we got here. How first of all, we should never even been in this position. Barack Obama should have got his appointee through. He did not. Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. And in fact, it's funny, I don't know if you remember this or not, Lana, but on the old show that you did, I was a guest on your show, and on that very night, that's the night Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away.
Right. I
And we got the
remember.
news right in the middle of that show.
Yeah, on our phones. Ah, that's right. That was
Yep.
really sad.
Very sad, and sad for numerous reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously because she's just a icon, and because it came at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
And you look back, and we could play Monday morning quarterback all we want to, but looking back, people are like, man, why didn't she just retire when Barack Obama was president? We could
Yeah.
have filled that seat.
Yeah.
And then Merrick Garland was supposed to be appointed to the Supreme Court. And of course, that was somehow blocked.
Right.
Again, the
I didn't
dynamics.
understand that either. What?
Yeah, how they were just able to do that and say,
Yeah.
well, we're in an election year and it's getting ready. Like, who cares? Like, I don't
Right. It's
understand
like
how
they
that.
trusted them to do the right thing always. It's just.
Yeah, and I hope that they've learned their lesson from that. But there's so many different things that we'll get into. But because of Hillary losing, Trump takes over, and he's able to appoint 3 different judges that are, I will admit, I mean, out of the 3, Amy Coney Barrett is at least somewhat reasonable. Of the 3, I mean, the other 2, I don't have much faith in, but overall, Amy Coney Barrett was on the side of giving a president full immunity. In fact, we'll start the show now that Lana is here, that the Supreme Court on Monday ruled presidents have immunity for official acts, like I said earlier, but punted to the trial court the question whether former President Trump's alleged conduct in his January 6th case was protected. The 6-3 decision, though not a sweeping victory for Trump, all but guarantees that his January 6th case will not go to trial before the presidential election, which, again, is another joke, but we can get into that in a minute. The trial had originally been scheduled to take place earlier this year, but it was postponed indefinitely. So, Lana, what were your thoughts when you initially heard the news? I kind of was prepared for it, but what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a surprise. Did we expect them to do the right thing? Like, we had to have known, like, they couldn't find him fully immune to like, we knew there was going to be some sort of split, right? Like, yeah, presidential duties, he's immune because that's like the fake argument Donald Trump was having. You can't, handcuff the president if he's trying to, like, go after, I don't know, a war or whatever. We can't be handcuffed, so you can't go back and try to charge him because he declared war on whatever. Like, it's just like, that's never happened. And the other piece to that is, aren't they already protected from that? Like, don't presidents just as a standalone, isn't there some type of law or rule or something that protects presidents from that type of thing happening?
I'm not exactly sure, but I do know for sure that we saw on the last 2 impeachment attempts that he is protected based on who the Senate is, and that's just another thing is that, if you have enough people on your side, they're just going to vote for you whether you're guilty or not. In fact, most of them, not most of them, some of them did admit Donald Trump did what he did was wrong, but we'll let the courts figure that out. And now the fucking courts aren't even going to figure that out.
Right.
And that's highly disappointing. I mean, the fact that this case is not going to trial, Donald Trump just really, I mean, he falls backwards into luck all the time. Now his sentencing for that's been pushed back from July 11th. It was supposed to happen in just 9 days, a week from Thursday. He was supposed to be sentenced after he was found guilty of his hush money trial, and now that's not going to happen until September. So there's just so many things that is just happening and falling in place for him. And obviously one of those things was just a disaster debate from Joe Biden that really exacerbated a lot of talk as to whether or not he's going to be the nominee. And that's one thing that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But that Supreme Court ruling is something that has a lot of people freaked out. Now, the other side of it, where it sounds terrible, and when we first got the news, it's just another sinking feeling. It's like, how does this stuff just keep happening? But at the end of the day, I believe when you take this ruling and you add it to Roe, this is going to ignite so many people. And I believe because of this ruling, it is going to turn out more people to the ballot box than we have ever had in the history of this country. Last election was the highest of all time. This one, I believe, is going to beat that. And the old adage is the more people that show up, the better chance Democrats have to win.
Right. It's true. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think Donald Trump is falling into luck. I just think like all the political junkies after Obama did his term just kind of fell off the map. Like everybody was a political junkie when Obama was running, and then all of a sudden people just kind of like self-suppressed themselves. They didn't pay attention. They didn't get out to vote. Like, we don't win if we don't vote. It's kind of simple. I don't know. Like, how hard is this?
There's no question, but what happened, Lana, was the political junkies from our side may have gone away, but new political junkies came onto the scene, and those were the Trump voters that I swear to you, I've talked to more people who voted for Donald Trump who said, I never voted in my lifetime, and now I'm going to do it. I'm like, this is the guy you've never voted in your life.
Right.
This is the guy that's bringing
Hillary.
you.
They just did not like Hillary. That's the other piece. They kept calling her they blamed her for, Bill Clinton's indiscretions. They hated her because she wore a pantsuit. Like, it was just so many weird things that they just hated her for. And she was so qualified to do the job. And then the
most qualified
Trump, because it's like, we need something new, someone who's not a politician. And it's just like, so you vote for someone who has never served anyone or just a life of service. Like, that doesn't make sense.
No, well, it goes back, though, to a lot of people who feel or felt, for some bizarre reason, they had really no reason to feel this way, disenfranchised from the system, and that Donald Trump, who is the king of making people feel like he's going to do something for you, like he's a tough guy. He is far from a tough guy, by the way, is anybody I mean, the guy whines and complains and bitches about every little thing that does not go his way. And I don't understand why people, maybe because we've talked about this a million times, but he talks like a professional wrestler. So, he sounds like the part, but he certainly isn't the part. He doesn't look like a professional wrestler. He's completely out of shape. He's,
sumo wrestler.
Goofy, right? A sumo wrestler. So I don't really, I still to this day can't understand it. So I was going to ask you, based on your premise there, did Donald Trump bring out these people who never voted before because they hated Hillary that much? Or was it because he said things that resonated with them and beyond just the I'm going to fight for you rhetoric that you always hear people say when they're running for president? I think there was a little bit of a xenophobic, racist sort of feeling that he brought to the table that may have, scattered the cockroaches.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Both things can be true.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
one or the other. It's definitely both things. People did not like Hillary Clinton. She was just not likable.
She was
And I don't
vilified from the time as a governor's wife in Arkansas, she was vilified.
yeah, but Americans have no one to blame but ourselves with just all of these problems where we're at today because, as we always say, you know, it's like we're looking for someone who's the spark, and it's just like you may not get a spark. We're not voting for a spark. We're voting for
Correct.
policy. It's
Yeah,
like,
this isn't like voting for class president. It's not like who's the most
yeah,
popular kid in the
it's just
class.
who inspires you. Like, doesn't inspire you to be able to choose when you want to start a family? That should be inspiring. That's
Yeah.
inspiring to me. Having my daughters have rights is inspiring to me. Having school loans forgiven, that's inspiring to me. Having Black history taught in schools, having diversity and equity, like, and inclusion, those things
Mhm.
are inspiring. So, like, who cares who's talking the message or giving you the message, as long as it's the message? Like, that's what counts.
Yeah, and to me, again, that's why it shocks me so much that so many people are not even understanding that they're ignoring so many messages. They're just
Yes,
it is mind-boggling to me, the comment sections that I see, the people I see talk on Twitter, how they say that we are sheep and we only listen to CNN and MSNBC is the every fucking time. And you know me, I don't watch MSNBC. I
right,
do not
right.
watch CNN. I
Mhm.
don't watch any cable news. But every single one says the same thing over and over and over again. Then they say we need a real leader like Trump who has interest rates low and gas prices low. And I'm like, you goddamn idiots. That is just not true. And you can cite 100 articles, and every time you do, they'll say, oh, good. Oh, you sent me something from NBC News, fake news. And I can't for the life of me understand how that worked so well on so many people, where he just got up and pointed at cameras in the back and said, see CNN back there,
Yeah,
MSNBC, they're liars, they're fake
yeah,
news, they're the enemy. And people got charged, not even just charged up, they said that is the way of life now. That is from this day on until they die. CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC, they're all liars. But you know who's not? Donald Trump, Fox News,
yeah.
uh, OAN and Newsmax and fucking Steve Bannon. All these people are telling you the truth. And I just stuns me. Stuns me.
And it's setting the stage, right? With what the Supreme Court is doing. It's like they're working in tandem, because if you have the Supreme Court saying, "Hey, we don't need federal regulators to do this work. The courts will do it. We'll take care of it." And it's like, it's Trump's courts and Trump's judges. They're the ones that are going to say, we don't need these regulations on emissions. There's too many. Let's take them off. And then you have a whole bunch of people who think that's okay, because they've been brainwashed to think like, what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. If Trump is saying, I'm going to give you clean water, the cleanest water you've ever tasted in your life, just crystal clear, they'd be like, Trump's giving us clean water. The shit can come out brown. And they'd be like, this water is clear. Trump said so. And it's coming out brown. Like, he has just convinced them. It's so bizarre, but that's where we're at. And if people don't wake up, we're really in trouble, because we really are going to be drinking shit water. Like, we just are. He didn't even care about Trump water. That was so bad, I hear. So imagine what
Well,
he's
of
going to
course, that
give
went bankrupt too, Trump water. But just another thing. But I think the foods that we eat, the water that we drink is going to be an issue, but that's just one of
One.
many issues. I brought this up before, and I brought it up a million times. If people think that Donald Trump is going to run the strongest economy, because again, you talk about where he just says stuff and people repeat it as if it's true. He comes out and says we had the greatest economy in American history, and it's easily disproven that that is just absolutely not true. We
That
brought this
he
up
had the
last,
greatest economy.
huh?
That he had the greatest economy.
Correct. Yeah,
Right.
that Donald Trump had the
Yeah.
greatest economy of all in the history of the country. Which again is not true. We talked about this and touched on this last week. I'm not here to say that Donald Trump's economy in his first 3 years was terrible. It was good. It was thriving, and part of the reason is because of the upswing that the economy was already on its way to.
Right.
That he was left in the prior administration with Obama, and I'm not saying that just because it's Obama. I'm saying it just because it's a fact. I mean, if you want to sit here and argue about it and try to have a dispute over it, fine, let's do it. But please explain to me or show it to me where I'm wrong. And I guarantee you nobody can, because it's just a fact. And I've asked a million times, what are specifically the that Donald Trump implemented that made the economy the greatest economy of all time, if that's what you're claiming? And nobody can answer that question.
What
But
policy? Like what? We could just tick off policies of Biden's. They can't. There's no policy.
he did absolutely nothing but play golf. But my point is that again, these are Nobel Prize winning economists who say Trump's economy will not be good moving forward.
No, with
Keeping
those
Biden's
tariffs.
economy will continue to thrive and get
Right.
better to where
Right.
we were, and it's going to be a thriving and great community. So, I mean, again, why am I having an argument with somebody on Twitter about the economy when people who are experts in this field who know what they're talking about? I mean, why would somebody not just look at that for 1 second and go, maybe I should consider for a second that a Nobel Prize economist, as opposed to a guy who hosted a fucking game show and bankrupted every fucking thing he's ever put his hands on, that maybe I should consider that the Nobel Prize winning economists know what they're talking about more than this
Why?
guy.
Why would they do that? They don't even believe Dr. Fauci. Why would they do that? They believe Trump is the doctor and knows more than Dr. Fauci, who spent his whole career saving people.
Well, Lana, that's, I think, maybe the only thing that you're a little off on, because if you recall correctly, and in fairness to Donald Trump, his uncle went to MIT.
That's right. I forgot.
So with his
Yeah.
uncle going to MIT, it makes
Right.
him very, very smart.
That's true. Rubbed off on Trump. It's like
Yeah,
my
and in fact,
uncle.
I believe one time he talked about how smart that was passed down, and he literally went right into a diatribe about sharks and electrocution, and I don't know
He
what
did.
else, batteries, and
He did.
and this guy, the people want him to be the fucking president. So, again, this is another thing, and we're going to get to the replacing Biden, where there's been talk about that. But the focus at the end of the day needs to be Donald Trump and the threat that he is going to create. Before we move on to that, our President Biden, had some comments about the Supreme Court ruling. I want to play those comments, and then we'll move forward.
Nation. It was the character of George Washington, our first president, to find the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, with today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it will depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years. But any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent. I dissent.
Real quick, I do want to point out towards the end of that, it's been going around online because now, again, Joe Biden's already had to suffer through this ignorance of that he's has dementia and that he doesn't know where he's at and all this stuff. And then you go through the debate and that exacerbated that a bit. But there are people all around on Twitter saying he read the line end of quote at the end of his sentence. So he doesn't know where he's at. First of all, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was quoting somebody. He said end of quote and then moved on to his own comments. It wasn't that he didn't know where he's at and said end of quote. So this is just beyond annoying. But we will get through this. I couldn't be more positive that no matter who is going to be the nominee, and I do still believe it's going to be Joe Biden, no matter who it is, the Democrats are going to win this race. There's absolutely no question in my mind, and we'll break that down a little bit more. But Lana, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. And it's just kind of ridiculous. You're right. It's like they were just looking for things right now. I guess, Biden just hadn't been salacious enough. So this is as close as we're getting to talking about Biden, because every day it's just, we're still, okay. So one, they cannot replace Biden. Only Biden can step down. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Two, because now you have some congressmen calling for him to step down, and it's starting to look like it's self-serving with a lot of these people. Like, it's just very strange. And I just started to have the feeling that I wonder if Biden will just do it just to shut, if it continues to be a problem, if people continue to not focus on where they need to focus, I just wonder if he would step down on his own. Do I want him to? I don't want him to, but because fuck the naysayers. But it's just, oh my God, it's just a lot. I'm just like, it's so crazy to me, because it's like, oh, he's reading a teleprompter. So what? That still takes skill, right? Because when I see Trump read a teleprompter, he looks like he's reading words for the first time. Like he's never seen words before, and now he's just reading them for the first time. At least when Biden, like I'm watching him, he's reading words, but he's actually understanding what he's reading, because his mannerisms and his little ad-libs.
He's enunciating.
Right. And the ad-libs, everything is in line. He's understanding it, right?
Yep.
So that means that he's pretty lucid. When you have this other one, even when he's on a teleprompter, he doesn't read the whole line. He still starts to talk about sharks. Like, what?
Well, the sharks happen when the teleprompters go out. So when the teleprompters go out for him, I have full confidence that Joe Biden could at least wing it a little bit and go through it. Donald Trump, he'll wing it, but he's going to start talking about electrocuting sharks, and Hannibal Lecter is his buddy.
Right.
And I don't know what I honestly have no idea. If this were in normal times and we didn't have just this propaganda media, there is a 0% chance Donald Trump would ever be president of the United States. He would never be able to be president of the United States before Fox News. There's 0% chance. No way. He's just too stupid. He makes no sense. And he has no idea what he's doing. Like, literally no clue in what he's doing. That's the other thing that kills me, is that people think that he goes into that office and he's running the show. He's not. He has no clue, no policy, no opinions. He won't even read the fucking briefings. It is just so annoying that people are really legitimately looking at this guy and going, he's better for our country, when everybody that was around him Everybody that are experts in the fields in which he is going to govern all say he would be an absolute disaster.
Right. And worse the next time.
This time, especially now after the Supreme Court ruling, it's hard to express just how awful and dangerous this is going to be for our country. People think that it is, like I said, hyperbolic. They think it's the sky is falling and, oh my God, you're just afraid of, you just hate Donald Trump so much, the orange bad man, TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome, or whatever the fuck stupid shit they say that I have no idea what they're talking about. But those are their only lines. That they feel like this is the guy that's going to lead our country.